Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a stabby chaos coordinator, and one chief shenanigator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, before we get started, I'm going to remind you that Nick is really, really sorry he couldn't make it. He absolutely loved this project. He bought the last Kickstarter that Dennis did, owns the physical media already, and still backed this one with the books he already has just because he likes it that much. He wanted it in all the formats. So he would be here if he could. Unfortunately, he is stuck in traffic. I'm told that California traffic is just so much fun to sit and still on. So the only place you can drive on an interstate where you are actually going backwards, it's so slow.
California was actually my favorite time, or my favorite time in California was during COVID because nobody was outside, so you could actually drive normally and walk places.
Yeah, I'm joking about the driving backwards. Don't drive backwards on the interstate. That was a joke. All right, so Dennis, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Sure. So my name is Dennis Robinson, otherwise known on the internet in my podcasting circles as the world's most okayest DM. And I am the writer-creator of the graphic novel series Lycan Solomon's Odyssey, which is the story of the world's first werewolf.
The world's okayest DM. How did you get that nickname?
So we've been doing a D&D comedy podcast now and I am a little horrified to say it, 10 years. This is 10 years now we've been doing this podcast. And so my players started calling me the okayest DM. And then the listeners started calling me, they're like, hey, now he's the world's most okayest DM. And then it just kind of stuck around and I just use it on everything. So
it's pretty funny. I have the distinct privilege of having DM'd for my children. And I was told, well, that didn't suck, Dad.
Yeah.
I got to get that on a t-shirt. Well, that didn't suck.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And on the back, I'm wearing the jersey right now that are part of the Kickstarter, but the back of them, I always put world's most okayest DM. And then whenever I am doing conventions, this is all I wear are the different jerseys, and anytime somebody's wearing D&D stuff, I just kind of turn around and they start to chuckle at the title.
So what system are you playing and in what world?
So technically we use 5e, but the way that we describe the show is it's an improv comedy show draped in the loose skin of Dungeons and Dragons with a little bit of drinking involved. So we are not sticklers for the rules. It's kind of whatever makes sense. I'll go with it. And I do a lot of high lows where if they're in the ballpark of something that makes sense, I'll give them a high low where they can get, if they guess it right, okay, you can do it. And if they don't, well, then no. We normally do a different setting every season. So we've done 1930s New York, like Call of Cthulhu stuff. We've done standard fantasy. We've done futuristic fantasy. We've done sci-fi, like a Star Trek sort of thing meets Firefly. The last two seasons we did SCP, which were my favorites because I love SCP if you're not familiar with it. And this season, since we are in our 10th season, we decided to go back to standard fantasy, but with a lot of call outs or callbacks to things. But spoilers, next season we're planning on going back to SCP because it was so much fun.
What is SEP?
SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. It's basically X-Files on steroids, but it's all case files, and it's basically like a shadowy organization that operates outside of all the world governments, and everybody answers to them. They don't answer to anybody else, but they're keeping the world safe from the weird and the strange. But it's all internet written, so all these case files are just made on the internet, and they range from funny to downright horrific. And so it's all about, containment procedures in terms of, how do you identify whatever the weird thing is. Could be an item, could be a place, could be a monster, just depends. Then how do you capture it? And then how do you secure it and contain it in like a containment facility? Which makes for really good D&D because basically the monster of the week is the puzzle dungeon.
So the Winchesters would be really, really happy with your game. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
With shades of the Warehouse 13 or the Librarians mixed in.
Yes.
I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Is it like a set crew that you've had for 10 years, or is it? Do you have like guests fill in, or?
So 3 of us have been here for the whole 10 years. We've the original cast, 2 of them left after season 5. Then we had somebody come on, then they rolled off, and then we had somebody else come on, and they're still on now. And they've been on since season 6. So there's 4 of us right now. We haven't decided if we'll ever bring on somebody else permanently again or not. We'll see. Who knows?
Some shows will do a what do you call it, like a guest spot where they play.
We do have guests. We had one last week, and we've been trying for this season to try and bring on all the guests that we've had over the course of the show, which is a scheduling nightmare to try and contact everybody and line up schedules for
herding cats.
That many. But yeah.
So has 5e been around that long, or did you start with like 3.5?
5e's been around that long. It's been more than 10 years because our group, at least the local part of it, we were just a D&D group just playing D&D and having fun. We used to listen to this podcast called Nerd Poker, which is a D&D podcast of a bunch of stand-up comedians like Brian Posehn, and Patton Oswalt came on every once in a while to like make silly songs or do whatever. And we really loved that show. And then it went off the air for a while because they all got busy with, their lives. And we got drunk one night and said, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we did a D&D podcast? And we bought a Yeti mic, stuck it in the middle of the table, recorded 2 episodes. They sounded terrible because we didn't know what we were doing in terms of audio stuff, but had people listen to it because we wanted to see what they thought. Like, would this be something you'd want to listen to? And people said, yeah, we think it's pretty funny. So then we kind of piecemealed a studio together. I built the studio itself. The sound equipment, we got I think they were like $20 microphones at the time. And the soundboard was found in one of our players' barns. Like he works for a winery and he just found a soundboard in the barn. So that's what we used to record on to start out with. And I learned how to edit audio, and over time we just kind of built it up from there. And, now we have a nice soundboard that's not in the barn and better microphones and all that jazz. And yeah. So it's been a wild event, but I've literally gotten jobs because of the podcast, like because I have the podcasting skills and stuff. So it's been a very weird sort of experience.
I will say though, I've been doing this podcast since this is season 6 of the Blasters and Blades, and we did 3 seasons of the Sci-Fi Shenanigans. So this is my 9th season officially of recording podcasts, and each season was a year, so 9 years.
Yep.
And being on the question asking end and being on being asked end as the guest is totally different experience.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I had a friend of the show, Jonathan Yanez, and his wife came on to interview me for one of them. And I felt like the world's stupidest podcaster, right? Because I was doing all the ums and ahs and, luckily for me, we couldn't air it because their end didn't record as well.
Okay.
So there's no way to edit. You've got to have the good base to edit something from an audio. So me sounding like a moron didn't make it past the cut. But after that, I will say I am a lot more sympathetic to our guests because I was on the other end and I sucked.
Well, so I mean the filler, the like, almost everybody does it because you just don't even think about it. Like, as I'm doing this, I can hear myself saying it because my audio editing brain makes my eye twitch, and it's just like, okay, now you say it like again, and you said and and all that stuff. Like I was part of my day job. I'm a consultant, and one of the projects I got pulled on was doing a podcast for SOCOM. Apparently they were trying to do some imagery adjustments, so they contacted our company to teach them how to do a podcast. And I got brought on to edit one of their, middle-ish podcast episodes. And basically all they said was just make them sound better and smarter. And I call them monsters or monsters because it's in the middle of words, it's commas. It's especially bad when it's in the middle of a word because it's really hard to edit that when it's half a word, then or or like, and then the rest of the word.
I will say when it comes to audio editing, if we tend to air as is because I'm lazy, unless there's a reason not to.
Sure.
But it's easier to edit empty space if they just don't say anything while they think.
Yeah.
Than it is to get the filler words. But again,
100%.
It's just something people do. So that's not even what I'm talking about. Just stumbling over answers to a book I wrote was what I meant. More what I meant. I'm like, I should know this. I wrote the dang thing.
Well, it's sort of a I would say that just kind of comes with experience. So I, for the most of my life, had a fear of public speaking, which is kind of funny now. I mean, I still don't like it necessarily, like internally. I just am a sociopath, so I can just kind of shut it off. But I would do, like, I remember the first year I did Dragon Con in 2017, I ended up going on, I don't even know, over a dozen panels where the room size would range between 5 or 10 people to 300 people. And when you're just kind of thrown in constantly doing it, you just kind of shut it off and you just get used to it. And then when you're doing podcast interviews, like I'm doing during the Kickstarter, I definitely do a lot more interviews. You're saying mostly the same things over and over again, but you just kind of get used to it a little bit. And then when we're doing the D&D podcast, it's almost like stream of consciousness because you're just trying to fill time because you don't want there to be a ton of time where someone's not talking. And as the DM, I kind of have to keep things moving anyways. So it's like spinning plates. You kind of have to just always keep things going. And when I do Dragon Con, a lot of times I end up becoming a moderator because I'm pretty decent at spinning the plates and getting people to talk. You'd probably find this funny and not be surprised. But one of the panels I moderate is always an indie comic panel. The comic track always has me moderate one panel on indie comics. And they always tell me it's because I'm really good at making sure that one or two people don't talk the entire time. Because there are one or two guys that if you let them, they will just keep prattling on and on and on and on. And I remember this was a few years ago. There was an up-and-coming artist. I cannot recall his name to save my life because I can't even remember all my nieces and nephews' names most of the time. But, I went over. I knew I was going to do this panel, so I went to each one of the panelists before the panel started. I went over to their tables and I said, hey, I just want to introduce myself and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about on the panel and just kind of get your feelings and thoughts. And man, he seemed so miserable. He said, yeah, I did a panel earlier and nobody called on me and I didn't talk and I just feel like it's a waste of time and like I don't know why I'm there. And so I made it a point that every question I called on him and made sure that he got a response in. Meanwhile, the guy who talks so much, whenever he would take a breath, I would say, that's a great point, and then just move on to the next person because otherwise you're never going to get a word in.
That is a skill I had to learn as a podcast host because you don't make the show about you, right? For those kind of episodes. Because I'm a talker. I'll talk and fill the gaps if you let me, but I know I've got to get other people talking.
Sure.
It is certainly an exercise in humility to be the one that's like, oh, yeah, shut up, JR. It's someone else's turn to talk.
Yep.
In social settings, so like when I've got friends, I'm never offended when they're like, hey, JR, shut up. I want to say something. I'm like, okay, speak.
Well, see, so that's the funny thing. So, I do interviews and I do conventions all the time, and people think, oh, Dennis is definitely an extrovert. No, I am not. I am an introvert. But like I said, I'm a sociopath. When you're doing conventions, you have to talk, or else how are you going to ever get the book out? So I can pretend like, I'm super outgoing. But at the end of the day, once the lights turn off, I don't want to see people again until the next day. Like I just shut down. People are like, oh, you going out to karaoke? Or you going bowling with I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody else. I might go out to dinner with other vendors so we can all commiserate, but that's about it. I don't want to do any of that other stuff. When I go to parties, unless I'm liquored up, I am usually a wallflower. The more people you add to a party that I do not know, the less that I will talk because I get really tired of having the same small talk conversation over and over and over and over again. But if you liquor me up, life of the party, I mean, I'll chitter chat, the whole way through it. So, yeah.
Speaking of chitter chatting the whole way through, this is my worst segue ever because we got distracted getting nerdy about podcasts and talking and D&D and such. Hopefully people aren't bored to tears. But before we get too deep, we do have the religion questions, and I did theme them for the topic of your Kickstarter. So are you ready for this?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right. The curse of the, and this is the geared towards the supreme awesomeness of werewolves, in case you didn't catch that, dear listener. So, Curse of the Werewolf from 1961, Wolf Blood from 1925. That's a black and white. I'm guessing it's not even a speaky one. I bet that's got the text at the bottom if it's in the 20s. And The Wolfman from 1942.
That one's easy for me. That's The Wolfman, 1942, with Lon Chaney Jr. That's what got me into werewolves in the first place when I was a kid.
What about the remake of The Wolfman, but instead of it being 2 words, it was all 1 word that came out in the 2000s?
So I would have liked that movie better if they had stuck with the original idea of practical effects. I don't like the CG in that. I didn't like it at the time, and I don't think it holds up particularly well. So I would have really liked to have seen that movie if they just went full on practical, the whole thing. Other than that, it was fine. I liked it, just fine and whatnot. But that original Wolfman hits me a little different because when I was a kid, they stuck me in the elementary school library to kill time, and I found this purple book with, I think it was orange embellishments, and it was a picture book of Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolfman, and I'd never seen a werewolf before, and I literally was flipping through the book just looking at the pictures, and I was fascinated. And ever since then, I've been fascinated with like dualities of characters. So like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the Incredible Hulk, stuff like that. And werewolves are just awesome because they're just super cool. So
if you want one about duality that's a kind of comical, Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde, where he
I've seen that one. Yep.
Hilarious. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's none of the modern, preach at you one way or another. Like, it's just tongue-in-cheek, and it's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but the twist at the end is the little blurb about the residual effects, and I was dying when I watched that. Like, literally hilarious.
It's got the chick from Ace Ventura, and it's got the guy from Wings, right? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yep. Okay. Making sure. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
So for me, I was introduced to, so I got in trouble in like the 3rd or 4th grade for reading Stephen King in class. Because I was bored. I was always a fast reader, and I was bored, and I was colorblind and didn't know it. So I couldn't read what was on the chalkboard because it was yellow chalk and green board. Sure. This is when we found out I was colorblind because they sent me in because they thought I was like special because I wasn't following along. And I got mad that they implied I couldn't read. So I showed up with Stephen King's It to read in class. Which I don't like horror. I'm not a huge fan of Stephen King. I read it just because I knew it would shock the teacher.
Sure.
But the content for a 4th grader. And so as part of that, when I was like stuck at home grounded for tweaking the teacher's nose on purpose, I couldn't read that. So I ended up reading my mom's copy of the Belgariad by David Eddings. And they've got a scene where they're shape-shifting. They're not werewolves. They're just shape-shifting. And the grandfather shape-shifts into a wolf. So he's not a werewolf. He's just a human who can shapeshift. But ever since then, the idea of being able to turn into a wolf, which of course naturally leads to werewolves, were something that's been on my radar since the 4th grade.
Yeah.
And then in the 4th grade is also when I watched, I think it was the Mod Squad that had the guy that turned into a werewolf.
Mod Squad. I know that title, but I don't remember the werewolf part.
It was one of the 80s. Anyway, but yeah, so for that was it for me. So I'm with you. Like, I've been into werewolves and wolves in general since really young. It's just such a cool thing. And then the cheesier, the better, like Nazi werewolves and like I'm for all of it. I don't care how cheesy it is, as long as it's got werewolves. I will endure it. I will Mystery Science Theater 3000 make jokes about it, but I will watch it.
What was the Werwolf or whatever it was with the one guy? Oh, I can't remember the name of the movie, but yeah, I remember they did a Mystery Science Theater on a werewolf movie, and I rewatched that one about 100 times just because I thought it was so freaking funny.
Absolutely. All right. So because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we're going to move it forward a couple decades. So American Werewolf in London, the 1981 movie. We just put the years because some of them have been redone, and I just wanted to be for specificity, dear listener. I don't know which ones have and have not, but American Werewolf in London from 1981, The Howling also from 1981, or The War of the Werewolf from 2021.
I'm gonna go with American Werewolf in London. That's one of the most iconic werewolf movies, I would say. Not my favorite werewolf design necessarily, but it is like the transformation scene is so good. I actually have a buddy gifted me the wood sign from the bar, the Slaughtered Lamb, I think it is off the top of my head. I'm forgetting, but it sits right next to my work desk so that I can look at it while I'm doing my stupid consulting stuff. But yeah, American Werewolf in London, definitely.
So of those three, I'm going to go with American Werewolf in London just because I like the two-legged version. I don't think the practical effects hold up.
Sure.
But the concept of not going full wolf, like having all three states, I liked.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about the Mod Squad because the actor because of the actor that was in it, but there's also that same actor that's in the Mod Squad was in the Werewolf of Woodstock in '75. So that is the one I was thinking of. But there's also the Monster Squad from '87 kids comedy horror film that was also the two that I was knocking in my head. So those were the two.
Got nards.
Yes, that was the one in my head. But the trivia about the same actor in Mod Squad being in the Werewolf of Woodstock, I just threw that in and pretended that's what I meant all along.
Sure, why not?
Absolutely. All right. And finally, one more for the road. So the Beast of Bray Road, Dog Soldiers, or Ginger Snaps.
So fun fact, you have my all-time favorite werewolf movie in this trio of choices here, and that would be Dog Soldiers.
Absolutely. We reviewed that on the podcast. They've been promising us a sequel since 2020 or 2002. It's just too perfect. One day, maybe the director will get that. Like, it's not for lack of trying on the director and the actors' parts. It's the studio and such.
Yeah. Well, did you ever see? There was I saw it floating around on the internet maybe in the last couple of years that somebody found one of the werewolf suits in like an attic in like a town square building, and the town found it and they got agitated because it's naked, so they put jeans on it. Have you seen this?
No.
Yeah, it's literally the full werewolf suit just sitting in like over a mannequin or whatever, and so it's sitting there, and yeah, it just has a pair of jeans on because the town found it unseemly that it didn't have pants.
Yeah, I could believe that though. Somebody built along the seashore in the Hampton Roads area like mermaids, but they didn't have clothes painted on them.
Okay.
But they also didn't have body parts painted either. They were just mermaids shaped, but people freaked out like, oh my God, she's not wearing underwear. I'm like, because it's just a piece of stone. She didn't have form painted on her. So they had to paint it solid color and then add clothes just to keep the people happy. So I believe you when you tell me that, nope, got to put jeans on this werewolf because reasons. I've seen The Beast of Bray Road. It's not bad, but I just think Dog Soldiers is better. I have never even heard of Ginger Snaps. I just did a Google search.
So the last time I did a Kickstarter, one of the shows I went on was to review Ginger Snaps because I hadn't seen it before. I hear about it all the time, but I'd never seen it. And it's pretty good. It is definitely a different take on werewolf movies, I would say. It's not quite the same thing that you're used to.
I'm okay with trying all the things. So,
yeah.
All right.
And if you're familiar with Supernatural, it's got Becky on it.
Oh.
She's one of the sisters, which that's kind of how I relate most actors to is when they came on Supernatural.
That's fair.
A strange thing, but I'm like,
was she a ginger in this one though?
I don't think so.
With a name like Ginger Snaps, I feel like someone's got to be a redhead.
I don't think anybody was. Now that I think about it,
that's false advertising.
Maybe the one. Maybe. I can't remember. I don't think the one sister had red hair. I thought she had dyed it, but it's been 2 years since I watched it, so I could be,
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I mean, I feel like at a movie that's 26 years old, we can do spoilers.
Sure.
Some of these movies that we're listing today are going to go onto our list for rotation to fit in for our retro movie reviews. Because, yeah, it's too many of them I haven't seen, and I'm like, oh, we could fix that content.
Oh, yeah.
And the great thing about movie reviews is you can stockpile those for just whenever if somebody cancels because they're evergreen episodes. So if I record it this year and I don't air it for 3 years, it's still just as valid if it's not current events, So
there you go.
All right. So we've talked about examples of movies, but what is your favorite werewolf trope?
I would say my favorite werewolf trope is the one where essentially you are the most terrified of changing into a werewolf and like hurting your loved one. And so you try to lock yourself up in the basement, or you try to, go out really far or something like that. And then always somehow you end up back together with the person that you care about most. And then that's where the trope can differ between movies. Like sometimes they'll recognize their loved one and then run away, or sometimes they won't and they'll either kill their loved one, or that's when somebody else, MacGuffin's in and just sort of takes them out. Or not MacGuffin, what's the word? The is it Ex Machina?
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, they just pop up and then save you. So I would say that's probably my favorite werewolf trope. Just the whole trying not to change, but you're going to end up changing anyways, and then having to somehow deal with the fact that there's a loved one nearby, and what happens.
I like the ones where it's a lone werewolf that turns some stranger, and he suddenly starts finding a pack, so to speak, even if they're not werewolves, just people that help him. So it's a twist for me on the found family, which I enjoy. I like the where it dives into like what you talked about, the duality of like the beast within kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just find that fascinating. Because that's one of the common themes in the monster movies in general is like the true answer is the real monster is us.
Yeah.
And werewolves is a perfect venue for that, because it's also something we grew up loving. Like, we're kind of predisposed in the West that dogs are our best friends and they're, family companions. And suddenly you turn into essentially a giant dog and not so friendly sometimes.
Sure.
Which can be fun. So for me, it's the finding the pack, in that angle, and then the pack hierarchy. They lean into a little bit on the research of the guy that did the alpha, beta, and omega stuff when he observed the wolves in the wild, which it's funny that they rely on that, because literally he went there within a year and he's like, oh, it shifted. I was wrong. His research didn't even stand a full year before he expanded on it, because like I said, he kept learning, but they latched onto that and now it's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
This whole romance genre is built around that theme. But I like when they explore it and they just take different takes on it. I don't know, that can be fun. All right, so what about your favorite piece of werewolf lore or canon about werewolf? The full moon transformation as an example.
Sure. So this one is about a specific werewolf. So there are various variety of werewolf lore, and my favorite is just because I find it to be so ridiculous, is the Rougarou. Are you familiar with the Rougarou?
Yes, I have read about them. They are from the Louisiana Bayou.
Yes, they are. They don't quite operate the normal way of werewolves do, so their lore's a bit wonky. But my favorite piece of lore about a Rougarou is, if you want to keep a Rougarou away, put 13 items in front of the door, because it's stupid and can't count past 12, gets frustrated and leaves. Like, that's like my favorite thing ever.
There is so I started reading some of the harem-lit stuff because Edie Skye is a friend of the show. HP Hollow came on and hers, and I read hers, and I'm like, I kind of like that it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's basically the male version of reverse harem. It's romance, but it's also a lot of action adventure stories. And there's one called How to Hunt Ghosts and Get Girls, about a guy that comes back from Iraq, and he just takes up a job as a handyman in Louisiana because that's where he's from. He goes home, and so one of their case files is they were hunting down the Rougarou in the bayou. And part of the reason it sticks out and I like it so much is I listened to the audiobook and they did all of the Cajun accents, which just added to it. Like, it's like good old boy on crack, right? And it was just like, as a setting, it is just such a perfect like place to get creepy crawlies and cryptids and wee beasties, right? Like just in general. And it's got such a mix of cultures. Like you've got the French and you've got some of the not African, that's specifically the white Africans, the African lore from the various nations that came over, went through the slave trade. And then you get some of the Indian, the native stuff mixed in. And it's just such a hodgepodge.
Oh, yeah.
That, that's part of what makes the Battle of New Orleans, if you're into military history, so unique, right? It's all of that, like all the meetings of all the different things into one melting pot of cool. So part of that.
The one guy on our show lives in Baton Rouge, and so when I do my really terrible Cajun accent, he gets so agitated. And I'm like, that's what you guys sound like, right? That's what all you people sound like? He's like, I don't sound like that right now when I'm talking. I'm like, details.
That's right up there with asking someone from Scotland, Wales, or Ireland if they're English.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for the lore, I like where they can change at will, but are also slaves to the moon. I like when they mix the two.
Yeah.
The one that that gets me is the clothes transformation issue. In some of them, leads more to the paranormal. They shift back and forth, and their clothes just go with them. And then in other times, their clothes, they have to take it off or it rips. I don't mind either way because, I mean, we're already dealing with magic and metaphysical sciences, so why not? Just be consistent. There was one I watched, they did a movie, and in the beginning, it was all about where she was, it was the one where she was a werewolf, a vampire, and a witch. It was based on like True Blood or something like that.
Okay.
The one set at the Academy. And they spent the whole thing about her constantly, having to cover up and being naked because when she shifts, her clothes rip, which is fine. And then suddenly at the very last episode, at the very last battle, like she's shifting back and forth, her clothes are going with her. And I'm like, no, you already established the war here. You got to stick to it.
If you set up rules, you got to stick with them.
So I like the when they do it. But for me, I imagine if you are in one where you got to take your clothes off, or if you're fast, if you don't have time to shift, you're just ripping them.
Yeah.
The thrift shops must love those people because they're constantly buying replacement sweats and t-shirts.
Yeah, or it's literally sort of the same logic as the Incredible Hulk. You just get stuff that's stretchy. Just gotta get everything stretchy.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, because I want to dive into the podcast topic, which is your werewolf graphic novel. Okay. We are civilized human beings here at the Blasphemous Blade podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So I'm going to ask you, sir, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
So me would be tea, and typically with honey, lemon, and if I'm sick, some ginger in it as well.
What would a werewolf drink?
A werewolf would probably, I would say probably coffee.
Feed the beast within.
Yeah, I think so. And like just gets them more just sort of energized, whereas like tea, it's more of a, it's a whole process to making the tea, and like it's very, very soothing and calming. I feel like it's kind of the opposite vibe of what werewolves usually give off, anyways.
That works. All right, so Dennis was gracious enough to sponsor this episode, and so instead of airing the commercial, we're just going to air the video he made for the Kickstarter. So bear with us, dear listener, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
All right, here it is. Yes, for the 100th time. I know, it's my fault. How many times do I have to apologize? Okay, fine. Let's make it official, shall we? I, Dennis Robinson, the world's most okayest DM, hereby officially apologize for not believing that werewolves are real, for not believing you, and for consequentially turning you into one. Look, that's why we're here, all right? To fix things. To consult an expert. A Ramani. That's just a popular myth that they're the experts on werewolves. I have it on a higher authority that it's actually the Swedes. They are the world's foremost experts on all things lycanthropy. What? Higher authority? My Uncle Bob is a comptroller in the next town over, Anyways, enough of this. Let's quit dilly-dallying. We gotta be very careful. These Swedes can get very cagey when it comes to talking about werewolves, so that's why I brought payment. Now, you wait here. I don't want to spook him. I'll be right back.
Welcome there, traveler. Come take a seat. You seem to have great burden. Let the great Borntini help you with your troubles. You got the payments?
Here it is. You can count it if you'd like.
Nah, you seem like trustworthy fellow. I'm sure it's all here. Yes, indeed. Now let's consult the crystal balls about your werewolf problem. Yes. Oh, yes, I see. It's a Kickstarter campaign for Lycan Solomon's Odyssey Chapter 4s. Solomon travels to the lands of ancient Egypt in an attempt to cure his werewolf affliction by seeking the aid of the Egyptian gods. He will discover the secret of the soul and the afterlife and must save Egypt from the forces working to invade our world. This beautifully illustrated graphic novel has 107 fully colored pages of story, with one extra page just to thank the Kickstarter backers. The Kickstarter has amazing rewards, some of them familiar, like the name in book, 3D printed miniatures, art, custom jerseys, or your likeness dying horribly in the next book. But we have new rewards such as tumblers, tote bags, hand-sculpted miniatures, and a commission to oil painting in the style of Bob Ross, and so much more. And as always, we always have exciting stretch goals. As we unlock and reach them, any backer purchasing a physical tier as opposed to a digital tier will receive them with their purchased rewards. So, the more monies we raise, the more free stuff you get. You'll have 30 days after the campaign starts to help us reach our goal, so to make sure you get your pledges in. You're welcome. Right there, see?
What? How's that supposed to cure my friend and I's lycanthropy?
I thought we were having conversation about cool Kickstarter about werewolves. But alright, Mr. Pushy here. Take some of this, mix it together in some water before the next full moons. And if that doesn't work, I don't know, try a blunt force trauma with silver, or maybe kill the original werewolf.
It's better work, or I'm going to tell my Uncle Bob. Swedish fortune teller.
Hold on. Here, take this. Now, you may not know what it is, but trust me, your children are going to hate it.
Okay, thanks. I got a lead. Two possible options. Let's try the first, and we'll go from there. Oh, and thanks for backing the Kickstarter.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude, which also is the video for the Kickstarter. I will tell you, dear listener, that the lack of sound in the first few seconds was on me. Operator error. I thought I had checked it, and clearly I did not. So there,
it was just mood music.
there's this ambiance music,
right.
which I have no idea if I'm using that properly. But, we're just gonna go with it. So with that out of the way, you told me a cool factoid about the video, that the video from book 1, Kickstarter 1, 2, and 3, they all sort of build on each other, almost like if you put together, you could have a full movie. So at some point in time when this is done, are you going to release them all as one long thing?
I guess I hadn't thought about it. So so essentially the first one is, if I remember right, I'm just walking through the woods and I run into the viewer or whatever, and then it ends with me just continuing to walk through the woods, but then the moon comes out and there's a howl, so it's implied that, either I turn into a werewolf or I got bit by one. The second video, I'm being chained up in the basement.
Yeah, that's the one I remember.
Yeah, which the guy who's the gypsy in this one, the Swedish gypsy, he is the good man from that one.
Cool. So that's the one, if nothing else, you can upload those to your YouTube channel once you start it, and then the other things, and then link to where you can buy it. Because if you haven't backed the first ones, dear listener, there's probably a tier, and I'm pretty sure I remember seeing one where if you back it, you can get the back ones that you've missed if you're coming into it late. But you can also buy it from his website. So it's not like, if you miss the first ones, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things you can just put up in the commercial.
Yeah, we have catch-up tiers, or we have add-ons you can do, or if you don't want to wait that long, you can go to the website, you can get them digitally, you can get them physically. You can actually read the first 18 pages of the first book for free digitally on the website as well.
And you have a stretch goal of 10,000, and you're roughly at 6,000 because art's not cheap, especially when you're getting it drawn for real and not, using AI, whatever.
Yeah.
because human artists want to eat. They like things like food and roofs and insurance and all that weird stuff.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I do on the page, I've done it this time in the last Kickstarter, is I actually do a cost breakdown because people like to know where the money's going or how much things cost. So while I set the goal at $10,000, the project's actually going to cost me about $35,000. So if I set it at 35, I would never make that goal. So I just put it at a more reasonable number to try and recoup some of it.
Yeah, I can see that, and then hopefully the long arm, you'll get people coming into it later.
Oh yeah,
when the Kickstarter is over.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone seems to think if you make art, you're instantly making Stephen King money. I don't think people realize.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen for most people. Most people, it's a hobby that costs them money.
Yeah, my day job pays for this job most of the time.
Right.
There is when I do Dragon Con and I have the indie comics tracks, I've heard this line from them many times. The easiest way to make $1 million as a person in comics is to start with 2 million.
The one author who is also former comic book artist that I've heard that from is the easiest way to make $1 million in comics is start with $1 billion. Because he's paid on the back end for some projects. I'm like, okay, that actually, you're being generous with only needing $1 million.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is the Kickstarter. I'm showing right now if you go to the Kickstarter page, this is what you would see. We're going to switch that. And we're going to show, so this is the first comic book cover. Mm-hmm. Well, technically it's not even a comic book. It's too long for that, right? It's a graphic novel.
Yeah. It's the first book was 72 pages. So
this is the first one. We've talked to him about, I think started at 2. This is the second one, which is super cool. I'm digging it. I think that was my 3rd grade math teacher, but
I've had people say that's their ex-wife at shows. So
well, that's not polite to say about people. So I'm trying to be. Well, I don't think what I said was any more polite, but it was far enough back. I don't remember her name, so it works. Okay. This is the 3rd one. I really dig this art. Your art is the kind you kind of would throw up on your wall as just cool poster for the man cave or the she shack, whatever the equivalent female is. Because I don't think girls can't not like this. Werewolves are for everyone.
Oh yeah.
And then let me scroll through. This is some of the sample art that's not been colored yet, obviously. Mm-hmm. I like the Kopesh off to the left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this book was, so the 4th book is set in ancient Egypt, and this is where it's no longer in pre-written history. So I had to do a lot more research than with the other books to just make sure that I was getting things as accurate as I could, to the point where there's a part in the book where Solomon's standing in a spot and he's looking in the distance at the pyramids. And I said, wait a second, can you actually see the pyramids of Giza from where he's standing? So I had to go on Google Maps, find a spot in the general vicinity of where I was thinking, and then literally pull it up. And I'm like, oh, nope, you can see him. Okay. All right. It works.
So again, this is just some more of the art that we're talking about. For some reason, it's freezing on me. But anyway, there we go. More of the art. This is some of the example of what it looks like colored. I'm not spoiling anything. All of this came from the Kickstarter sample art. You've got the shape right of the Egyptian temples. I've written some stories in that space, and it really was box-like intentionally. There was some religious significance that I can't remember why, but they did build this way, which is kind of cool. More of the art. Oh, he just needs a Scooby snack.
That is his Scooby snack.
Well, unfortunately, poor guy.
Is he a poor guy?
We don't know. I haven't read the story yet.
Right.
I like this weird armor. Is this supposed to be a Roman gladiator?
No. So this is a character who also recurs throughout some of the books. And he got his weapon and armor from Atlantis.
Oh, okay. That fits.
Yeah.
The trident. Yeah.
A little scaly.
All right. Some more example of colored art, which I just think is awesome. I like the alligator. Who is that supposed to be?
Sobek. So that's the crocodile god of the Nile.
I like all of these. You're leaning into the Egyptian lore. I'm really digging it.
So this is the 2nd variant cover. It just hadn't been lettered just yet. I just uploaded the lettered one tonight. So yeah. It was funny. So the first colored version of that, Ra, in the upper right hand corner, the colorist had made him like blue. So I was like, okay, here's a picture of what a hawk looks like from Egypt. If you make him blue, he just looks like a blue jay. So we have to change him.
Yeah. I'm colorblind, so if it was blue or gray, probably couldn't tell.
Okay.
But I imagine it matters to some people. But yeah, I really dig this art. Like I said, this is the kind of art you'd put on a poster on a wall. This is just some example of it with its lettering and the art. The sepia color tone really works for a desert setting.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent some time in some of these deserts, and it works. Like the vibe is there.
I think the last time I was on, we were talking early, or maybe it was the first time I was on, we were talking about in chapter 2, the desert, like during sundown or whatever, where you get the oranges and the purples and whatnot. And you were saying that the colors do kind of look like that when the times of day change. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then everyone, if you have seen the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, there's this scene in the beginning where the sandstorm is coming at him, and then it's got the face of Anubis, I think. I don't remember who the face was. Imhotep. There you go. But the sandstorm itself that it was depicting, take the face showing out of the sand away. Mm-hmm. They really do have sandstorms like that. They call it Whispering Death or the Wall of Death sometimes.
Oh wow!
Because they don't have insular houses in that, like it's a contained loop system, which does mean it breathes better in the extreme weather if you can't have central air that's running on full power all the time. Sure. It's why we built things the way we did before central air. Mm-hmm. That also means that sand gets in sometimes, which is just, and if you're really young or really old, of course, it gets in your lungs and you die. But that's really what it looks like. So I thought it was kind of cool to see some of that actual representation in media, and you're covering some of that look when you did your desert scene. So your colorist did his research.
Yeah, I got really lucky with the art team I put together, and the colorist. I know when we first started working together, he did the first page, which was a night scene, and he went straight in terms of this is what it actually looks like. I said, no. I said, I want more color because I love color. So I was like, think Aladdin color palette. So like more purples and blues and things like that at nighttime, just to make, the desert more interesting looking. And yeah, I love what he does with color. So.
And so I'm just going to keep scrolling through some of the art while we're talking, just because to give you an example. And if you're listening only, or if you're over there on the audio only podcast via Spotify or what have you, I think it's worth clicking the link to go to the Kickstarter, because you'll see the art that we're sharing. Nothing that I'm sharing is spoiler. Everything that I'm showing you on this podcast is from the Kickstarter page, which I thought was a fair way to do it. If he was okay with that being shown, then it was probably safe. And then it's freezing on me. So what would you, if you were going to summarize both the overall series and then episode 4, could you give us that as an idea, like a sales pitch?
Sure. So Lycan Solomon's Odyssey is the story of the world's first werewolf. So it's like a little bit of horror, a little mythology, a little adventure, a little history. First book in the series, it's the origin story, sets everything in motion. Every book in the series after that, it's the same main character, but he's interacting with different regional monsters, mythologies, gods, things like that. So the second book we did, ancient Arabic mythology and folklore. Third book we did, I describe as H.P. Lovecraft meets Gilgamesh. This one is all about ancient Egypt. So Egyptian gods. I try to keep it as close historically. Like it's like a alternate retelling of history. So all the dates, like the people they were fighting, all that stuff is as historically accurate as I could possibly make it.
So this is one of because you have 2 covers. Obviously, we showed the one that didn't have letters yet. So there's 3 versions of the cover.
And this is the main cover.
This is the main one with
Sobek,
the crocodile, and then this is the Egyptian vibe. Mm-hmm. Why do you have, just from somebody who's not traditionally a comic book reader or graphic novel reader, why do you have more than one cover?
So one of the things when I first started getting into the comics in terms of making them, that everybody told me, they're like, you need to have variant covers. People love to have their variant covers. And when I'm doing shows, I also like having options. So when I'm doing shows, people will come up and sometimes they'll like the main cover for book 1, but they'll like the third cover for book 2, and then maybe the main cover for 3. So Variants are just a way to give people a little bit more variety, but also allow them to have collector's items, because usually the variants are a little rarer than the main covers. So that's usually why you have different cover art.
Okay. All right. So just as a refresher, book 1 is the story, or the series is the story of the world's first werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
So do you cover without spoilers how he becomes a werewolf?
Yep, that's in book 1.
But is that something you could share without spoilers for someone who's
Sure.
coming to this late?
So it's kind of like a Faustian deal sort of situation. Solomon is a very aloof character in the first book who doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of responsibility or care in the world, and then all of a sudden he's put into a role that he is not used to, and then facing desperate circumstances, he makes a desperate decision, and it turns into a sort of Faustian deal sort of situation where he's just asking for a way to save his village, and he gets a little bit more than what he bargained for.
Okay. And then we talked earlier about the journey through each of the series. Do you have an end point already planned?
Yes. So currently the series is going to be 15 books long and 3 5-chapter arcs. So the next book in the series after this one will be the last in that arc, and then we'll start another one. And like I said, each of the books goes into different areas and regions and whatnot, and I have them all roughly planned out past 5. 5 is the last one that is like very specifically planned out because I'm already in the process of writing that one. But I know what happens all the way to the last page of the last book. And that book takes place in the near distant future. So it's not like flying cars or anything like that, but it's just kind of, it's not quite 2026, but it'll be, maybe a couple decades.
Okay. And how many books to get there? Is it going to be, do you have it like a series, like there's going to be 10 of them, or?
So the plan is 15 total.
Okay.
So we're on 4 right now. So it's going to be a bit before I get to 15.
Okay. And the art team has been consistent through, because sometimes that is an issue with visual imagery if you have to switch writers midstream, as it were.
Yeah, no, I got really lucky with the team I managed to put together, and it's the same 3 main art people. So the main artist, his name is Sal Denaire. He's out of Spain. My colorist is Ezekiel Dominguez. He's out of Argentina. And then my letterer, who I sort of, I'll say obtained, but met through my first editor, he's also out of Argentina. So the main art team, that has stayed the same throughout the series so far. My editors have changed here and there. Like the editor on the first book, he left after the first book, and then I had 2 editors for like an art editor and a writing editor for the second book. And then third book and beyond has been just a writing editor, and that's it. Cause I kind of feel like I got my, got enough experience to be able to know, okay, this is what I'm looking for art wise. Here's what to tweak, change, things like that.
And I will say that you're pretty transparent about it. If you go to the links in the show notes for the various, you tell exactly who your team is. You show pictures. Mm-hmm. So if anybody was interested, I really like this art, you could track down his other. Some indie comics, they kind of hoard that information. Whereas you make it very clear if you wanted to support their other art because you liked it, you could. You follow the links with whatever they got, up to and including your editor. Like all of that's there. I thought that was neat that you shared the credit that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they each one of them brings something to the table, and the series wouldn't be what it was without any of them. Like the editor, for instance, we thought we were going to lose her for book 5, and what most people are thinking, well, when you just have an editor, they're just checking for commas and punctuation and spelling in the right spot. But this particular editor, the reason I didn't want to lose her was that when she's editing a book, she'll straight up say, this isn't how this person would talk. Like this character, I understand what you're doing with this character. This is how this other character would talk, but you're using the wrong voice for this particular character. So maybe it would sound more like this if they say it like it's the same like it's the same text kind of, but it's said in a different way. So the information being conveyed is the same, but it's just put a different way. So she gets all the characters, and she gets what makes sense and doesn't make sense for characters. And I find that I don't think if I got another editor, they would take that much care in it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think they would get that involved. But yeah, so I feel like each one of them should definitely get all the credit that they deserve. And if anybody wants to contact them about their projects, they're more than welcome to. The reason why book 4 got delayed was because my artist got tapped to do Conan the Barbarian. So he's actually the second person on my team who, because of the Lycan stuff, they got noticed by the Conan team and got work from them. So yeah, the book got delayed about, I think it was about 6 months before we got started. So,
well, on the flip side, one of the reasons that people don't share that information is for what you're saying, and they might get picked up by someone else. You don't want to lose your ringer. But the other one is if you're the one who's paying for the back end, right? Like, it makes sense if you want the credit because you're funding it. But I just prefer your collaborative approach. I think it's kind of cool that you share the credit. So before we dive into this book, as far as specifically like the literary storytelling angle, let's knock the Kickstarter stuff out of the way. Sure. So obviously you've got tiers where you can get digital copies or print copies. You can get copies that are already published. So this is episode 4. Is it considered an episode or what?
I call them chapters.
Okay, so this is chapter 4. So obviously that means there's 1 through 3 still out there, unless you're George Lucas, and then it's like 5 and 6, and then like anyway. So those are out there. You can add those on to this one. You mentioned in the video you've got art, you've got swag, you've got little figures. So there's stuff you can get at various tier rewards. You did mention that there's not risk on this one in that the story is still being made, whether it's backed or not. Because you're already almost done with it, so it's not like I'll do it on spec, which sometimes happens. So there is minimal risk as far as because I've backed things that I didn't get my money back and I didn't get the product either.
Oh, same.
And so I don't feel like that's going to happen here. And if you look at his, because Kickstarter will let you see, you will see that he also has completed all the other 3. So it's not like he's ever left anyone hanging. And Kickstarter is gracious enough to put that information for metrics for people. So
yeah.
With that, is there any of your stretch goals or your merch or any of the side stuff that people can back that you feel like they need to know before we talk just about the story? Because that was the critique from me from last time.
Sure.
Of my interview of last time is that we focused too much on the Kickstarter and not enough on the story itself that they're Kickstarting.
Well, so every Kickstarter I try to do something a little different. Like, I'll bring back rewards from previous Kickstarters, but I'll try some new stuff as well. So like, a t-shirt or the physical copy, enamel pin, your name on the thank you page, that all returns from previous Kickstarters. The new stuff this time around, we're doing these really cool tumblers that another vendor of mine, like a vendor friend of mine, makes. So we're going to collaborate and do that. There is a sculpture that I have on my tables at shows, and the artist's name is Louis, and his handle is Shadow Rabbit Clay Guy, and he does all these hand sculpted statues. And so he hit me up and was like, hey, I'd like to partner with you on the Kickstarter. So one of the tiers is you can pick a character from any of the books, whether it be the 4th one or otherwise, and he will make a 3-inch hand sculpted statue for you in that. Because he did that on another Kickstarter that I backed, and I have it sitting up next to my workstation, and I think it's really cool. So I'm stoked about that. But as far as rewards that I think people would like, that I always find to be the most interesting, it's unfortunately it's one of the higher tier rewards because I don't want to make it too available. It's you get to die in the next book. So I get some, like, I'll have you send me some photos of a normal face and then usually a horrified face, and then in the book we have you die in a horribly gruesome, grisly fashion, and then I will make an 11x17 print of your death page and then give it to you. I think that's funny for some reason, is murdering all my friends.
And I've done that too. So it's Tuckerization is a thing. It's people love it. Kind of makes you immortal because you live on it for as long as this print copy is around.
Oh, yeah.
So your Kickstarter is like $5, gets you just book chapter 4, book 4 in digital PDF. $20 will get you all 4 of them. So if you want just digital, $20 will get you all 4. And then physical copies start at $20 for chapter 4 in print, and then you can included with the physical copy is the digital.
Yep.
And then From there, it just goes on from as little as that $20 for the first one to all the way up to you can pay $550 just to get some of the art as oil paintings.
Yeah, so that's I'm not into werewolves tier. So when I do shows, I do these nerdy little Bob Ross inspired landscape paintings that people seem to dig. And so one of the tiers I made is I'm not into werewolves. So it's not even werewolf art. It's nerdy little landscapes from I've done Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I just did Big Trouble in Little China last week. So that sort of stuff. And I think there's a calendar in there as well. And then a commissioned 16 by 20 landscape of your choice that I'll make and send to you as well. The highest tier is $1,200, and that's the God King status, where you get like your name on the credit page with the rest of the art team, but it's your God King, and you get an upgraded jersey, and you get a commissioned painting as well. And then there's a bunch of stuff, and you get all the other things. So once you start rattling off all the items that you get at the higher tiers, it's just a ridiculous amount of things.
And you do have, you mentioned in the pre-show that the difficulty getting into retailers. And so you do have on your Kickstarter what you call retail tier 1 and retail tier 2 for stores that want to stock it, get some copies and some, miscellaneous and merch. So if you're a store owner that sells indie, that's an option for you. There's lots of swag, shirts, mugs, posters and whatnot. And so I really do think that's kind of cool.
Thank you.
And like I said, if you just want the physical copy to read the story and you don't have the money, the one thing is kind of cool is you've got the chapter or $50 hard to pin down one that you actually made a MP3 audio commentary for people as they're reading it, which I think was kind of cool, like behind the scenes type deal.
Yeah, we've been doing that since chapter 2. And the last Kickstarter I did, instead of just sending them, like I send them the MP3, but I also put it on YouTube as like an unlisted link. So that way people can skip from chapter to chapter, or not chapter to chapter, but in YouTube it's a chapter, but it's like page. So if you're on, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing at once, because usually it's a couple hours long, you'd be like, oh, I want to look at, page 79. And you can just skip right to where it says 79. Which is tedious and takes forever.
But I mean, you make it a read along kind of effect, which I think is cool.
And it's all
behind the scenes, director's
my
cut.
buddy Charles, and it's basically a director's cut where we talk about we'll literally bring up a page and the two of us will talk about it. If there was any sort of interesting sort of behind the scenes things going on, like I said with the the cover where it was colored and it kind of looked like a blue jay. Anybody who gets the book, they're not going to know that if they just look at the cover, because that's not going to be the cover that they get.
One of the things we talked about it briefly, but you've got a video Kickstarter cost explained in your thing where you talk about the overall cost, where each of the dollars going out on a color-coded kind of graph, so you can see where your money's going. So if you're concerned about that, he does break that down. Not everyone's interested at that granular of a level, but I still think it's cool that you provide it. With that out of the way, so what can you tell us about the main character?
So Solomon is a complicated character. So he starts off, like I had mentioned before, he's very aloof. He doesn't really care about a whole lot. He was not he's like the youngest brother, so he doesn't really have to worry about responsibility or taking care of anything. That's all been taken care of. And the first book takes place 8,000 BC in like a little village that's near an oasis in Mesopotamia. But as the series goes on, that personality then also changes because, when he's thrust into responsibility, now all of a sudden he has to be a lot more serious. And he still has a bit of a sarcastic personality, but things can get kind of hard for him. The second book goes into a lot of PTSD. Like, he's reliving everything that he experienced in the last book. Sorry about that.
The dangers of podcasting. Your voice gets dry.
Yeah. I felt it creeping up, and I'm like, oh, crap. So the second book is dealing with PTSD, and he kind of decides to become a loner because he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but he's somebody who sort of thrives with social interaction. So it's sort of a decision of, Does he want to become a hermit, or does he want to try and live in society but deal with things? Sorry about that. The third book is sort of a mix. He has a lot of reservations about things because he has experienced a lot of things at that point. He's hundreds of years old at that point. He's worried about hurting his loved ones, but also if he doesn't hurt them, then he has to watch them grow old and die. So at that point, he's in full on, I'm trying to find a cure for whatever this is mode. Less revenge, more just trying to find a cure. And he ends up experiencing an insane amount of trauma by the end of that book and causes him to snap. And he kind of has a little bit more of a bleak outlook on humanity. The fourth book, he is in full on, all right, we're trying to get rid of this mode. And he is a little bit more cold towards humanity until he is sort of humbled at one point and starts to interact with a specific human being who kind of changes his outlook on life, and he decides to try to make a little bit more of a difference. I would characterize him as a reluctant hero. He doesn't really care about doing the superhero or like saving the world or anything like that. It's sort of as long as it's not inconvenient to him and it serves whatever it is that he's trying to do, then he's okay with it. But he's not also outright like a bad guy about anything. He kind of mostly cares about what's important to him. So like his loved ones or friends and family, things like that.
So because of his age, are there reoccurring characters other than the Atlantean guy we talked about earlier, or is it a new cast with just the same werewolf every time?
So the main villain is present throughout each of the books. Not always heavily featured. Sometimes he's more of like a little background character, sort of lurking. He is more present in this book. The Atlantean character, he starts off as a child in the first book, and then through methods in the second book, it's, he's kind of given immortality to keep hunting Solomon, that sort of thing. So he's also a recurring character. There is another character who was Solomon's best friend in the first book, and we don't know if he's I know, but the reader doesn't know if he's a ghost or if he's a hallucination, because in the second book, Solomon hallucinates a lot, but this one hallucination doesn't go away. So we don't know if it is sort of the best friend from American Werewolf in London situation where it is a ghost, or if it is just him hallucinating and he just needs somebody to talk to sort of situation. So I would say those are the three recurring characters other than Solomon. Everybody else, they're pretty much new because he's also moving from location to location. So even if characters were surviving from book to book, because the time is so spread out, like this book takes place over, if memory serves me, like a couple thousand years. So most characters are not going to live long enough to be present throughout the entirety of the book anyways.
So can he pass it on, or is he the only werewolf in your lore?
So the plan eventually is that any werewolf you've seen in any fiction will exist in this universe, but his particular affliction is special. So he cannot pass it on to anybody. And every book has kind of opened up the lore a little bit and also explained things. And this is no different. This one goes more into the soul and the duality of things and sort of what happens when he changes into the werewolf, as he's been, doing it for a little bit longer. So he loses consciousness when he turns into a werewolf normally. So he has no idea what happens. He blacks out and then wakes up and, he's got blood and guts all over him usually. So yeah, so I would say I forgot the question already. I'm sorry.
No. So he's not the only werewolf.
Yeah. So he's the only werewolf right this second. But he cannot pass it on to anybody, whether it be through a bite, a scratch, or he has kids. Like in the third book, he had children. They did not, develop lycanthropy. In this book, he has children. They do not develop lycanthropy, so it doesn't pass on to anybody. His is his own special version of this affliction.
So his lycanthropy does not mean he can no longer have kids, like in some of the lore?
No. Nope. He still functions just fine in that aspect.
Okay. So If that's the main characters, do you have any of the favorite side characters from Chapter 4 specifically?
My favorite side character from Chapter 4 is that human being that I talked about that kind of rehumanizes Solomon a little bit. His name is Takut. And he is he's an old Egyptian soldier who essentially gave himself up and into slavery in order to save his fellow soldier who was also his son's life.
Oh, okay. So if you could live in this world and be a werewolf with Solomon, would you?
If I could be a werewolf too, yeah, sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, sign me up. You could just said, if you want to be a werewolf, yes. So if I have to deal with all this other stuff that he has to deal with, yeah, I'd probably be down with it. Although the idea of immortality doesn't necessarily interest me that much. I don't know if I want to stick around that long. So I feel like it, but if you have another person that you're immortal with and you could just be buddies, that might be all right.
That'd be one hell of a long-running bromance.
It would be a very long bromance. But imagine all the inside jokes that nobody else would get.
This is true. And all the places and food you could try and see. And
that's right. The only worry would be that, after a certain point, you just get bored. Because, like, how many new things can you try?
I don't know. I guess I'm a simple person. I could probably.
I'm super simple, but I don't know. After maybe 10,000 years, who knows?
I mean, I'd be willing to try. Take one for the team for science and whatnot. Okay, so is there anything we didn't cover about this story or the Kickstarter that you think people really need to know?
I think we've covered everything. I mean, we've said where we can get the books. We talked about the Kickstarter itself, and we've covered Solomon as well as the side characters and main characters and everything like that, and then the overall plot. I don't think there's a whole lot else to tell without spoiling things too much.
Okay, and is there, and I didn't see this when I skimmed through it because I want to focus on the story. Is there a tier where you can buy all 4 physical copies? Was there one that I missed?
Yes, so there is a catch-up tier.
Okay.
I forget the exact name of it, but it's around, I think it's $70 because it's 15, 15, 20, and 20. So yeah, that's $70. And at that tier, you get all 4 copies plus an enamel pin, and I forget if there's anything else. I know you get the digital ones too, but I know I have 15 tiers, so I often sometimes forget.
And that's a cool tier if you do digital copies, but you wanted a set to give to friends or family as a gift.
Yeah.
You get to read it and they get a copy, and you don't have to tell them you got a copy too.
That's right.
Okay, so this is the part, dear listener, where I'll remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book, so do your part. You can buy this on Amazon, so if you're over there, I'll link it. Go buy it, leave the show reviews and whatnot. But as we talked about in the pre-show, Dennis mentioned sometimes quality control is an issue when it comes to a graphic novel type media product from a print on demand. So if you go to his website for Hivehead Studios, you can buy copies from them as well, and they have a little bit more control because it's not print on demand about quality. On your own personal website, the publisher's website, can they leave reviews there as well?
So I haven't figured out how to do the reviews on the website itself, so I don't have that set up. Most people I know, they've bought it and then went on Amazon and left a review, or actually, you know what? I think you can leave a review because I do have a few sales that people have left a review on the store. So I'm pretty sure you can leave reviews.
Are you on Goodreads? Do you have an account over there for your books? That way people can review there as well at a minimum.
I do not have an account on Goodreads, but I can make one.
You've got one, but because it's not set up and nothing's claimed, you're mixed in there with someone writing male romance, motorcycle erotica.
All right.
Stories about Vietnam in addition to the Lycans, and I'm pretty sure you're not writing any of those under that.
No. So I'll have to go in there and figure that one out.
But I just think Goodreads is a place you can review. I don't know if there's yet a comic equivalent of a Goodreads for people that leave reviews of comics. But if you do have a website or a blog and you do a review, send it to Dennis. He'd love to see it. He'll share it around for you as well. Because that's the cool thing about indie comics and indie art in general.
Mhm.
You get that access to the creator and you can share your thoughts directly. Whether they do anything more than smile and nod and say, I'm glad you thought that is another story, but it's still kind of cool that you can make sure at least the person who made the art you're commenting on got to see it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've had people at shows who will, make suggestions or ask a million. I had a show, I think it was last year, the year before. I had somebody buy the books on the first day, and then they came back on the second day, and they had many a question to ask, because mostly about things that hadn't happened yet. So I was like, well, I don't want to tell you everything. I was like, do you want me to spoil the whole series? Where he's like, no. Just tell me as much as you can, because I want to know about. And then he walked away and came back with another notebook. He's like, okay, because of your answers, I've come up with some more questions. And it's just like, okay.
That's cool though.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I love like those sorts of interactions and just talking that kind of stuff. The only time it kind of, I don't want to say backfired, didn't work out so well, is when, now I do not call myself the world's most expert on werewolves. So I had somebody come up once, they bought the books, and then they said, have you seen this werewolf movie? And I said, no. And they said, how can you call yourself an expert and you haven't seen that movie? And I was like, okay, well, I haven't seen every single werewolf movie that's ever come out. I'm sorry. Or then he like listed off it was like a TV show from, I think it was like the 70s or something like that. I was like, I haven't seen that yet either. And so it just kind of kept going, where he kept picking all these very obscure things. And I was like, I'm sorry. I never said I was the most expert on werewolves. I've seen.
He's the D&D actually crowd.
Yeah, yes. I'm the world's most okayest expert on werewolves. How about that?
Yeah. Well, you're the expert on Solomon the werewolf.
That's right.
There you go.
I would hope
at least one. Yeah, if you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the reviews. That really does make a difference, especially with indie creators. You can, if you buy it on Kickstarter, leave reviews there. It really won't affect this, because obviously by the time you're leaving reviews on Kickstarter, the sale is done. You've got the book. But what I will say is that because he's going to continue putting these out, people that look at chapter 5 can go look at 1 through 4 and see the reviews there. And so there are people that will follow that tree. And so it still does help to leave them on Kickstarter. And with that, if people wanted to track you down on the wild, wild interwebs, if you're not hiding from the full moon, where would you be?
You can find me on the internet at Hivehead Studios. So all the social media, you can find me Hivehead Studios, or I guess Linktree, Hivehead Studios. You can find me on the website, hiveheadstudios.com. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Hivehead Studios, where it's me and the friend Charles McFall, the one that we do the audio commentary together. And we just kind of talk inside baseball for all things on this crazy comic journey, whether it be specific shows I went to, or talking about setting up the Kickstarter, or various horror shows in terms of like when I was first getting signed up with my Spanish publisher and all the weird stuff that went into the contract, negotiations and things like that. So that's what that Patreon is. It's just a podcast that comes out mostly weekly, depending on how busy I am. And then, if you want to check out my my D&D podcast, you can find it on all your podcatchers at Botched, a D&D podcast. Like I said, improv comedy show draped in the loose skin of Dungeons and Dragons with a little bit of drinking involved.
Okay. And why Hivehead Studios?
So when I was long ago, when I was in college, one of the first schools I went to was the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, which no longer exists because all of them went bankrupt. But I was in a history of animation course, and we had to do a flip book. And I made a flip book of this disembodied head with a beehive haircut, like a literal beehive. And a little bee flies out the top, buzzes around the screen. The guy's eyes follow it. And then he eats it. And then it bounces around his cheeks. And then his head explodes into about 1 million bees. And then it spells out Hivehead Studios, because for whatever reason, I just thought it was a cute name. And my teacher left a comment, cute, but you should keep this name for the future. And when I started doing the comics, and I was like, okay, well, now this is an actual business, and I have to do, taxes and all that stuff. I need a business name to put it under. And should I ever get around to doing the other books that I've thought up that aren't in the Lycan universe, I figured, okay, well, I need some sort of umbrella name, and that's when I dusted off Hivehead Studios.
Okay. That's one of the dangers when you name your publishing company after yourself or your first series when you grow past that.
Yep.
There's a reason my imprint is Bayonet Books and not J.R. Handley Publishing or, Sleeping Legion, which was my first series. It's because you build in longevity, right? Because in shy of werewolf turning you, aliens abducting you, or lightning striking, you're going to keep on keeping on. And which case you need a brand that grows with you. So I dig it. Okay, so we will link to all of that. And the Hivehead Studios website is the one where you can buy a copy of the old books if you don't catch the Kickstarter in time without going to Amazon, because he can quality control it on his end. Because obviously if it's not good, he doesn't ship it because he can look at it first.
That's right.
And so that really does matter. You can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree / Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree / Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Say the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to leave a note in the comment section. This is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink those coffee brand coffee products until they get high on their own supply. If you want some of that coffee brand coffee, link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. Seriously, these episodes aren't free to produce. Cost a couple $100 every year to keep the lights on. And every time you donate and help offset that, it is greatly appreciated, because it's one less time I, don't have to stand on a corner and sell pictures of my ankles. And nobody wants that. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy and absentee, regrettably so, co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom or howl at the moon. There we go. Thank you for coming on, Dennis. This was fun. I'm going to have to
Thanks for having me
to get the print copies. Nick said be there or be square because they're super cool. So, I can't let him have a copy if I don't buy one. That's just rude.
That's fair. But no, always great talking to you. And thank you again for having me on. I really
We'll have to do a panel on, and we're still recording. She didn't get confused. We'll have to have you and your co-host or your co-host, the people on your creative team, to talk a werewolf topic that just, oh, by the way, it can pimp your stuff. Because I realize the Kickstarter, you're going to be busy, but when it's over, we'll get something on the books, and then we'll link to Hivehead Studios, and they can go check that stuff out. Because I feel like you guys have done a lot more research than some people who don't write about werewolves on werewolves.
So maybe.
All right. And with that, I'm going to hit the end button. Wait for it.